Please join in. In fact, the more you guys talk, the less I have to. Ben, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I already sort of know what the answer will be, but could you talk about, we discussed like anxiety about future events?
All right.
Thanks.
Just read a sutta about that this morning. So, any guy, welcome everyone. This is the Saturday morning Dhamma talk. It's Friday evening in the States. We've got 11 people on this call, and we're going to be talking about faith. Faith is not a word in Buddhism, though there have been some translators that were overly eager. In fact, I got to start talking about that right away, because in reality, we have English translations of the suttas thanks to people who knew nothing about either the Pali language or the Dhamma, and yet they struggled with it, some of them for years. But what is that's left with is bad translations. And I have a whole long list of favorite words that are badly translated. Shall we go through a list of them, winding up with faith? All right. Okay. The first one and most important one of all is that dukkha is not suffering. Dukkha is translated as dissatisfaction. In other words, you could be laying in a hospital bed all doped up and you're not suffering at all, but you could still be dissatisfied because the nurse is old.
Don't forget concentration.
Yes, that's another big one, that samadhi is actually translated backwards. Samadhi means the organization or the gathering of the mind. Basically, you could think of it in modern psychology terms, from Eric Berne and Sigmund Freud, talk about the id, the super id, and the ego, or in Berne's phrase, the parent and the adult and the child, are often, with most people, at war with one another. In other words, the superego is all the rules, rites, rituals, ways things are supposed to be, your oughts, your ideals, your coulds and woulds and shoulds, at odds with what you want. And it's certainly at odds with reality. But when the mind is a samadhi mind, that means that the parent, the adult, and the child are integrated. Another way of talking about the unification of the mind would be at one-ment or atonement, when you're in tune with reality, as opposed to wanting something. An example would then be of where this goes wrong is so many people practice what they're calling meditation when they concentrate on an object. When you're concentrating on an object, that means that you're shoving everything else out. That creates a duality. Unification is whatever's happening, man, pay attention to it. One by one as they occur. So samadhi is badly translated as concentration. Let me give you this example. Years ago, there was several products on the market by the big food manufacturers, and one of them was frozen concentrated orange juice. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember. Maybe Christopher is. Does anybody here remember frozen concentrated orange juice? You hear that word concentration in there, huh? Does anybody drink frozen concentrated orange juice? Anybody? Ever? No.
I used to.
They took the water out to make the transportation costs go down. But in order to drink it, you have to make it samadhi. You have to put the water back in it that they took out. Now, there is a good word used for the word concentration if you change it slightly. And that is, there is a kind of concentration which is actually repetitive. That you're concentrating on something means you keep coming back and you keep coming back and you keep coming back. In this case, you keep coming back to reality, as opposed to letting the mind wander away into duality.
Oh, I was gonna ask, does the Buddha say anything about mantras, like chanting mantras?
I'm not sure that mantras existed in the time of the Buddha, but I don't remember any place where they're talking about it in that frame of reference. But I do know of a sutta where the student would attend the let us say the chanting sessions and not able to remember any of the chanting, even though it was in his primary language. In other words, he was a 100% doofus, retarded, someone who had no intellectual capabilities at all. It wasn't that he didn't want to learn. He really wanted to learn, but he was not capable of learning. You can call it like an IQ of 60 or something like that. Okay? And the Buddha gave him then a technique. He gave him a piece of cloth and says, you keep repeating, you hold this piece of cloth in your hand, and you say, as I clean my hands with this cloth, I clean my mind. And he was actually able to become an arahat by practicing that. So if there's any really stupid people here on this call, take a hand rag and just keep holding it in your hand and keep
That'll be
saying
my
that
new.
as I clean my hands, I'm
I gotta
cleaning my
start doing
mind.
that.
Pardon?
I'll be my new. That will be my new practice.
Okay.
I
And
gotta
you could
start.
say that then that was a kind of a mantra. It was kind of complicated. Most of the mantras that I've heard have been Hindu. And one of the Hindu ones was Om Namah Shivaya, Joyta Se Joyta. One of them is Ram, 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 Ram. Now, here's the value of a mantra is that it means something to the student. So Om Namah Shivaya means Om to the name of Shiva. And if you come from an area of India where they worship Shiva, keeping your mind on Shiva and the aspects of Shiva, and basically Shiva is, the destroyer, which is the same thing as anicca. Watch everything rot. Everything rots. Om Namah Shivaya. Pay attention to everything's falling apart. Nothing stays the same. That in fact, in the Mahasi method, this is actually what they want you to do, is to pay attention to everything dissolves. It goes into dissolution. Any thought that you can note is gone by the time you note it. The noting is actually a new birth after the death of the thought that you were noting. And when the mind begins to fall apart like that, that's when they go into, oh no, everything is falling apart. In other words, they're missing something, but they eventually, through step 6, is fearfulness, misery, disgust, despair, followed by a strong, strong determination. I've got to get myself out of this, followed then by redoubling one's right effort to actually practice the Four Noble Truths, step 12, to where here in the Noble Dhamma, we start with step 12 and let you play catch-up ball on everything falling apart. Okay, and Nietzsche, everything is falling apart, but you can also see that falling apart quality is the fourth tetrad of the Anapanasati Sutta, is everything is falling apart. Okay, so there's that Om Namah Shivaya. Now let's look at the Thai mantra. The Thai mantra that I've only heard of one. Let me see who's here. Mikey, what's the Thai mantra? No, that's too noble. No, no, the one Thai mantra is Buddho.
Oh, Buddha, yes.
And they practice that more in the northern part of Thailand. Bu on the in breath and do on the out breath, which means stay awake, watch what's going on. Bu on the in breath and do on the out breath. So these are the mantras, but the point of the mantra is that it means something. And yet most people, when they're practicing a mantra, they got it from some Aztec guru, and they don't even know what it means. And so for those that were raised in the generation that I was raised in, basically what happened was that I had a stomach ache, and my mom took me to the doctor, Dr. Young. I remember him well, because I saw him so often. I even rode in his airplane. He also was the one that held me up by the feet and banged my ass. All right. And so she takes me to the doctor, and he gives me something I've never heard of and never seen before, Coca-Cola. And I fell in love with Coca-Cola. And so now, if you really, really want to have a mouth-watering mantra, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. How sweet is Coca-Cola? All right. Makes you feel good if that word means something to you. And so that mantra that the Buddha gave to the dumb guy is that as I clean my hands, I clean my mind. That actually has some meaning. It has to keep us in the present moment, cleaning the mind. Om Namah Shivaya, keep us in watching everything fall apart. This is the value of a mantra. But the Buddha didn't give any specific mantras. I think, in fact, the word mantra didn't even exist in the time of the Buddha. He may have, in fact, given the very first mantra. But that's unlikely, is because they had the Vedantas and the Rig Vedas and the Brahmashads, and, well, not the Brahmashads, long before the Buddha. That stuff was memorized and taken down and learned over and over and over again. And then some of the tidbits were then taken and used as mantras. And so I'm not against mantras at all, because one thing that's good about a mantra is that at least it keeps the mind occupied out of the unwholesome. By the way, on another level, there is the joke. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. How many of you ever heard that one? You know what it means? It means put that kid to work. Don't let him be idle. You know, give him some job to do. Make him sweep the church or something. But the reality is that we have to look at that word idle, because, in fact, this is what we're really shooting for. When we get the mind so glad and so happy that there's no place to go and nothing to do, the mind gets really idle, right? It gets, take it out of gear. We got no place to go. And so in that regard, the idle's mind is God itself. So it depends upon how you use the word idle as to whether you're trying to put the kids to work or not, or whether you're ready to stop all of your activities that you've been told that you're supposed to do. All right. So let's get back to some of the other words that are badly translated. And I got to tell you, here's my favorite one, because it's so stupid. And that is that in the Pali, the monks carry around a round object. Now, in the time of the Buddha, it was made of clay. Sometimes it was made of wood. But by the way, they even had little rules that you have to have your bowl or your pot away from the edge of a desk, because if it falls, it'll break if it's a clay pot. They don't use clay pots anymore. Almost all the bowls that I see now are made out of metal. But they didn't have really good metallurgy in the time of the Buddha. So a very high quality bowl would be one that's carved out of wood. But almost all the monks carried a clay bowl. Listen to the word bowl, because the monks did not carry a bowl. They carried a pot. Does anybody know the difference between a bowl and a pot? You eat out of a bowl when you're sitting at the table, because the bowl has a flange out to let the food cool. To where a pot has the edge of the bowl turned in to keep the heat in and to make the mouth of the pot small. The monks still carry a pot, and it is in fact called a pot in the Pali. And in Thailand, they go on what they call pendapat, which means walking with the bowl. Except that it's not a bowl, it's a pot. So why, if it looks like a pot, acts like a pot, does the business of a pot, is shaped like a pot, why was that word translated as a bowl? Why didn't they call it a chalice? That's just as bad. But that's a hint. Why did they call it a bowl? Because the guys who did the translations were Catholic, and they don't put pots on their altar. They put bowls on their altar. It's sacred to them. That's why they call it a bowl. But in Thailand, they still call it a pot. So those are a few words that sometimes very critical. This one's flimsical, but there's a lot of words like nibbana. Nibbana, all it means is cool. The example of that is you've been on a road trip, you've been out in your car, and then you bring the car home, you drive it home, you open the door, you get out, and you walk away from the car. Is the car still hot? Yeah, it's still hot. Even though it's finished the journey, it's still hot. But will it cool off? Yes, okay. So this is the real meaning of nibbana is that if you stop doing everything that makes you hot, you'll still be hot, but you will cool off if you continue to stop doing all the greed, ill will, delusions, etc., like that. So now let's get around to the word sada, that has the bad translation of the word faith. Now, if you can understand that the word faith actually means no evidence, none, nada, okay? So you can tell a child when you grow up. Well, the child hasn't grown up. He doesn't know anything about it, but he sees other people who have grown up. So the natural tendency is for him to grow up too, if he can stay alive long enough. So growing up, when you get grown up, what do you want to be when you grow up? A fireman, a teacher, president, a Trump Tower owner, that kind of stuff. But the kid does not have faith. What does he have instead? He has a kind of an experience. Okay? And so now the Christians come by and say, God loves you. Have faith. Look at the Christians who say that. Where is their faith? They don't have any. They're out there trying to stop women from having abortions. They're out there hating blacks. They're out there with their immigration. They don't have any faith, so why do they want you to have faith too? It reminds me, by the way, of one of the jokes that I learned in psychology. That somebody walks into a bar and one of the drunks at the bar immediately invites him over, come have a drink with me. Why is that? Is because people who drink alcohol know the pros and the cons of it. The cons, by the way, are very obvious and evident, but the pros of drinking is a little bit weird. And so what he wants the other guy to drink with him, which makes it okay for him to drink too. All right. Same thing happens with anger. If you are angry, you want everybody to be angry so that justifies your anger. If you are wealthy, you want everybody else to be wealthy too so that they can make you more wealthy. So anytime a poor man gets a buck, you want it. He's wealthy enough to pay you. This is how these kind of things work. Okay. So people who have faith in God want you to have faith in God because that kind of proves to them then that their faith is okay because we got you to do it too. This is faith. No evidence. This is the whole quality of no evidence is what faith is all about. Okay. Let us say it this way. You're going on a long walk out into the wilderness and you come across the ravine that's got an old rickety bridge across that ravine. Do you have the faith to walk on that bridge? Probably not. But if you see someone else walk on that bridge and they get across, maybe then you'll try it because you've got now some evidence that someone can cross that bridge without it collapsing. But if you do not see anybody crossing that bridge and it looks pretty rickety to you, are you likely going to cross it? Depends upon how bad you want to the other side. And if this side is good enough, you probably won't cross it because you don't trust that bridge. You've got no evidence and it looks pretty rickety. So with that, then, where does faith come into Buddhism? Because a lot of people will say, want to practice meditation thinking that they're going to get some value out of it. They have faith that meditation is going to work. I mean, it's highly regarded. There's a whole lot of really unhappy people who meditate and they want you to meditate too so that you make them feel better. Somehow together you can get you to meditate with him. His meditation will start working. All right. So this is why we use the word faith sometimes, but to reality, going back to the kid growing up or the rickety bridge, if you can actually see someone who has been practicing the teaching of the Buddha and it looks like he's gotten something out of it, that's evidence. Maybe I'll do it too because I see that guy is all over the place with his joy. Maybe I can become joyful also if I would only practice a little bit of joy. So this is really what we're talking about is that the word sada does not actually mean faith in any regard, but it's more of evidence. One of the things that happened actually repeatedly in North Carolina, because I dealt with Christians on a regular basis. They would come to the water, they would invite us, and they would always ask the same question over and over and over and over again. What do Buddhists believe? Mickey, what do you believe?
That everything's okay right now.
All right. Well, I'm more like Sergeant Schultz. I believe in nothing.
Oh, there you go.
I believe in nothing at all. Okay, so what is this in? In fact, what I would tell them at that time would be that I don't believe in belief. I believe in evidence. I believe in an education. And if I get an education, then it's not a belief anymore, it's knowledge. Now, the Christians can go around talking to the wall, thinking that it's Jesus is listening to them. But if they wind up having Jesus talk back to them, they're either going to be a Mother Teresa or they're going to be in the psych ward. They're schizophrenic when the walls start talking back. But they have faith that the walls are going to talk back to them. They have faith that there's a sky daddy up there watching them. A better thing to do is be, oh, well, since I don't have a sky daddy with great big binoculars who can see right through the roof of the house, maybe it's time for me to start watching what's going on. This is the real point is that we don't need a sky daddy watching over us. It's time for you to do that job yourself. So much then for faith. So let's talk about it where it really works, and that is Shraddha is the evidence that you get by watching someone else having some value in the Dhamma. This is one of the reasons why I want folks in the West to stop reading books, stop going to Reddit, stop doing these retreats, because almost everybody at the retreat, including the people who volunteer and work there, and even the guy who owns the place, has got no value to show for why they want you to do a $2,000 retreat. The better thing to do is to go to a wat, to go to a Tibetan temple, go find some of these bald, robed dudes who really live the Dhamma, because then you'll begin to have some evidence that the Dhamma actually works. That in fact, I worked really, really hard when I was with Goenka because I had faith. It wasn't until I met Achan Po and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, but I tell you, really, it was Achan Po. When I saw that dude and how much he cared for me and how he was dealing with me and how he was able to manage a great big wat like Wat Suan Mok with more than 400 monks at a time, and still he did nothing. He did nothing, and yet he ran the place. And that was impressive, that he could manage by doing nothing at all. He managed a huge, huge organization. I remember specifically that people would come to him and complain about this, that, and the other thing. And he would sit there with them and listen to everything they said and said, all right, I understand. And that's all he ever did, was said, I understand. You know why? Because those people who were complaining, they didn't stop complaining to Achan Po. They went out to complain to somebody who actually didn't get it and would do something about what they were complaining about. And so everything just happened all by itself. Achan Po didn't have to do anything. And that was quite an education for me, to stop doing stuff to become enlightened. That you don't do stuff to become enlightened. You stop doing stuff because you're already enlightened. There's actually an old Zen story about that, in the sense of the young monk came up to the old man, the old monk who was sitting there in the temple hall, and the young monk said to the old man, "Are you practicing meditation to become enlightened?" The old man just sat there, and finally he opened one eye, and then he says, No, I'm sitting here because I am enlightened. Then he closed his eyes. All right, that's kind of evidence. That's what we're looking for. When you see someone who really has something of value, you want it too. But if you're taking on some practice or you're doing something because somebody says it's good for you, that's faith. It doesn't work too well. I also have been in algebra classes. I was lucky because Mr. Horton, who taught me algebra when I was in the 10th to 11th grade, you see, I had algebra at another school. And I didn't learn anything. Why? Because the teacher didn't know algebra. It wasn't fun to her. She was doing it because it was a job. But then I got to Mr. Horton, and he loved algebra. And because he loved it so much, I learned something from him. Okay, so this is the way that we're talking about is that you have to have something real that you can see, that you can learn from, that is an education. This is what real Shraddha is all about to get started. Now, let's look at Shraddha after you start practicing. Okay, so you think enough of it. You maybe have seen some videos, you maybe have read some books or whatever. Now you're going to practice. But if you don't get anything out of it, almost everyone would quit. But in fact, I find two kinds of people. 99% of them quit, and 1% of them will just get fierce and go gung-ho. I'm going to get something out of that. This is why you have so many Mahasi students, is because even though they're not getting anything out of it, they're determined they're going to practice to get something out of it. But there's a better way of practicing. And that is that you go and practice and get some good benefit out of it immediately. And now you've got education. And if you keep practicing over and over and over again, you can see that this practice of Anapanasati has great fruit. It has great value. And you begin to grow in your confidence. And that when the confidence is real, this is actually part of the Eightfold Noble Path. It's the fourth item on the list. It's called Samma Sankappa, wrongly translated as right thought, but better translated as right intention, and correctly translated as right attitude. The attitude of a winner is based upon evidence. So take any sport that you want. The kid who has never done it before, but he sees somebody else do that sport, he's going to have a little bit of confidence to try it. But he's not going to make it to the Hall of Fame. He's not going to get a gold medal. He's not going to get the Heisman Trophy or anything like that unless he practices and practices and practices and practices. And he's not going to practice if he's not getting anything out of it. The same thing is true about music. If somebody can listen to the Beatles on the radio or on the record, and then they say, I want to play music too. So that's the beginning of Shraddha. You've got evidence that people can play music. You take a boy out of the jungle and he's never even heard the drums play. He's not going to sit down to a piano and start playing Schubert. He's just not going to, because he's got no evidence. But once you begin to have evidence, and then you go and take a teacher for the piano, and she starts rewarding you, saying, yes, that's the right way to do it. And you get that, you begin to have some confidence in what you're doing. Okay, so now let's review the Eightfold Noble Path for just a moment. The first thing that we do is we start to remember to look at what the mind is doing. And we can see what the mind is doing is unwholesome. In fact, there's one that over and over and over again, I have students who ask questions and ask questions and ask questions and ask questions about practice. And I have to keep reminding them, you're just staying in a state of confusion. You're not practicing. You have to stop asking questions and say something like, I don't need the answer to that to be happy. I can be okay without that. We begin to practice correctly. And as we practice correctly, our confusion begins to melt away into confidence. Then, in fact, you do not need to know how to practice meditation in order to practice meditation. You'd be much better off just practicing meditation because it's so dead simple to do if you'd only do it. Never mind, start again with happy, wholesome thoughts over and over and over again. Go ahead, Santiago.
So, if I understand correctly, because I'm new to all of this, even though I've been here for a little bit, Anapanasati is basically just a reference point, right? It's like a reference point. Like if I'm focusing on my breath, my automatic breath, and I just stay with it, and I just am conscious of it, then if I meditate on that, then I can see if I'm angry or when it's gonna bubble up, like I can catch it right there at that moment and then decide whether I'm gonna get muddy or not. Like then it becomes free will, let's say, to choose. So there's nothing else beyond that.
It becomes
really,
will.
Is there?
Okay. You could go so far as to say right noble effort is the same thing as will or willpower. And it's not free. It's expensive. You got to put some effort into it. Why? Because the monkey mind is in the habit of just jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping, and most likely jumping right into the mud. It's his favorite place. The mind is either in the mud hole or in the shit pot, one or the other. And so we have to get ourselves out, clean ourselves up, cleaning the mind, and then coming back into a happy, wholesome state over and over and over and over again. Okay? When you're breathing, when you're paying attention to the breath, you can say something to yourself, wow, this breath is really good. I'm glad I can remember a long, deep breath. Wow, I breathe so much better when I'm thinking about breathing, and I'm not breathing so well when I'm thinking about the hoochie coochie and the shit pot.
But overall, my question is, at its very basis, it's just you focus on the breath, whether you're doing it forced
I would go
or
just
automatic.
one more step, just to make it a little bit harder. We're not focusing on the breath, we're focusing on the mind, focusing on the breath.
Okay, I see what it is.
You have to say, I can remember to be in the long breath.
Everything else is additional. You know, if I start adding shit on like Om Namah Shivaya, Hare Hare Bol, and then I just repeat those fucking mantras, then I'm just wasting my time, right? Like I just focus on the breath.
It doesn't mean anything to it, but if it means something to it, like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Oh, Coca-Cola. All right. That's the mantra. Or that cleaning the mind. Oh, I'm cleaning my mind. As I clean my hands, I'm cleaning my mind. Okay. This is basically what I'm getting at is that by practicing over and over and over again, we begin to change the attitude. Look at the attitude that you've got in your mind, not just the thoughts, but the attitude. Why? That's actually, as I was starting to say and describing, the Sama Sankappa, the fourth. So number one, you remember. Number two, you take a look at what you're doing. Number three is you make a change. And if you're already changed, then the fourth thing to do is to congratulate yourself. Wow, this is so good. That's like the difference between Coca-Cola, 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 and Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. All right. There's an attitude change there. And that attitude then is the Samasankappa. That's when we have the sada. That's what we mean by confidence. And so to bring up that one favorite sutta again, over and over and over again, the sutta where the Buddha says is that when the mind is hindered, the student can say, no matter how obstructed or hindered the mind can get, I can throw that out. Hot dog, I can get rid of those thoughts. Yeah, so what if the cops just busted me? Am I going to be fussing and fuming as I go down the road with this ticket in my hand? Or I'm going to set that ticket down and say, oh, well, at least he didn't kill me. At least I'm not locked up. At least everything is okay. Wow, what a good moment this is. Okay? Look on the bright side of life, as Brian would say while he's hanging on the cross.
Always
this is your
look
confidence,
on the
no matter
bright
how
side
obstructed
of
the
life.
mind gets.
Da-da, 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 da-da. The life of Brian.
Always look on the
Look
bright
on the
side
bright
of
side
life.
of life.
Da-da, da-da, da-da,
Da-da,
da-da.
da-da,
Yes.
da-da.
David, you got your hand in the air.
Yeah. I wanted to toss in that, especially to my buddy Santiago, dude, doubt is the problem, man. It's the hindrance. That's what's killing you. It's doubt. Drop that crap. Like you said, it's anything else that comes into your mind that you worry about or you think about or whatever else. You're like, all that is just a bunch of nonsense that's keeping me from being able to reincarnate as the beautiful smile on Alexander's face. Like, just, you want to talk about Shraddha. I look at that dude and he is Shraddha, okay?
Yes, that's the confidence. That's the joy. We have to practice that because we're, let us say, greatly in the habit of playing our life's piano with our elbows. We go around this way our whole lives. We're banging around our life instead of sitting down and start watching what we're doing and getting some technique built up. And the technique is the technique of joy in the beginning. And then the second technique is the confidence that I've got that I can keep my joy, that I'm all right. I can lay there in the hospital. All right, everything. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I'm enjoying it while I'm here. Oh, what a relief it is. No computers. Oh, what a relief it is. No Sangha calls. Oh, what a relief it is. Nobody bothering me, except those nurses that kept coming in. But when they leave, oh, I'm glad that they're not taking blood anymore. Everything is okay.
It's like those dad jokes. At least I'm not with the wife.
Exactly. Yes, so start looking for those at least, but don't think of them at least, but wow, isn't it great? So now this is what we're talking about sada. Sada is not faith that is like covering up doubt with a layer of more doubt and more crap. But actually, it's the antidote for the doubt. Now, the antidote for the doubt is very important. It's a step if we were sick. And in fact, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa has a pamphlet or a book out on a talk that he gave called The Spiritual Disease. We're born with the spiritual disease from our DNA, and then we're giving extra microbes by all of the families around us. Okay. In fact, I think that it was Richard Dawkins who talked about the meme. Actually, it's a mental virus. We pick up these mental viruses from other people. our bad attitudes, our what ifs, and especially our doubts. Doubt about, am I good enough? Doubt about who can help me. Doubt about what to do. Doubt about where to go. All of those kind of doubts. I can't do it. But in fact, if you're having fun doing algebra, that's completely different. Very few kids in the class are having fun doing their algebra. All the others are working really hard because they doubt that they can do it. They struggle with it. They may get the right answer, but they didn't enjoy it. What's good with the right answer if you're not enjoying the right answer? Let's have some fun here. In fact, having fun with math is better than getting a good score at math. So this is where the Shraddha begins to shine. This is the attitude change. Hot dog, I can do that. Doesn't matter how obstructed the mind gets, I can get over it and I can come back to a good state. The Buddha talks about this state, by the way. He says that it is a first step, it's the first knowledge on the path. He also says that this is noble. He also says is that this is not held by ordinary people. Ordinary people have those mental viruses called doubt and worry and frustration, and I'm not sure. They use words like try and hard and work. But when we make that major step into I can do this, then we start using words like toy, play, wow. Those are the kind of words that we use. And this is what we mean then when the faith really is no longer faith at all. It's an education, it's knowledge. And this first knowledge is I can come out of my crap. And that grows into, well, I see that crap coming and I'm not going to mess with it. That's the Matrix. You've seen those movies to where they playing dodgeball with bullets. Okay, so we start playing dodgeball with big basketballs. Then we start playing dodgeball with arrows. And pretty soon we get playing dodgeball with bullets. And we can dodge them all. And when we get so good at dodging bullets, guess what? The bullets are so far away we don't ever see them again. That's when one becomes an arahant, is when he is so wise that he stays miles from the bullets. So in that way, the best kind of, you know, the movie The Matrix that was so popular? The best part of that movie is when you leave the theater and you don't have to watch those bullets anymore. Now we've got no bullets. Everything is okay. But in the beginning, we have to see those slings and arrows of outrageous thoughts and fortunes and whatever that we keep hitting ourselves with. And we have to see it and stop it. And then we begin to say, hey, I can see that stuff and I can stop it. And then when that confidence grows, is hot dog, I can stop that stuff. And then we come to the point of, wow, I don't see that stuff anymore. Oh, what a relief it is. I don't have to have any of that kind of stuff. So that's to talk about faith. Faith ain't going to get you nowhere. You have to have evidence to get started. You have to see someone else cross that rickety bridge. Or if you're a penguin, you got to watch the first penguin go over the cliff. Then a few more go over the cliff. And you say, all right, I'll go too. Or the wildebeest. Wildebeest are kind of special in that regard. You know who's the first over the cliff? Some old dude who got in the way and the younger ones pushed him over the cliff. And the little ones like, well, he made it. Let me try it too. So This is what we're really talking about with strata, is that it is first seeing someone else can do it. And then number two, you start doing it yourself and getting a little results. And so you keep practicing. And over and over and over again, you begin to see, I can do this. And then that's the growth of real strata. The real dude is when you know, no matter what happens, you can handle it. Because you've seen it and done it so many times before, been there, done that. Got a load of it now. So, Scott, did I answer your question on Sada?
Yeah, I think it was a good I didn't really have a question, but you just wanted the topic. But I think it was a good
You've been
discussion.
there, done that.
Yeah. I thought it would be. I thought if I threw that out there, you would start talking about it for sure. Like faith, you know, it's means different things to different people and is
Yes,
misunderstood a
and
lot
some
of
of those
times.
people don't get it.
Yeah,
It means
some of
different
them
things
don't
to
get it.
different people, and so they don't practice.
Most people don't get it, don't
They
practice.
don't get it.
Well, all it took was one call with Dhammarato, and he fixed me right up. He's like, you gotta pick that shit up off the floor yourself. It's just stop playing with that. But then it
It's
makes sense.
easy
It
to
makes
get
Did I
sense.
fail to mention, and you're that pile of shit?
Exactly. But then it makes sense.
You
It's like
made that shit up.
it's like the Dalai Lama, right? He's just a guy that got a world-class education.
He got a
Like,
world-class
like
education.
he had a bunch of Arhants around him, and so like, you know, there's like a good, I guess, a good example of what that can be like. Yeah.
Have you seen the video where the Dalai Lama was really around the right kind of people? He went to Thailand to visit Bhikkhu
I saw that.
Buddhadasa, and they've got it on video.
Yeah, I saw that. They got the music on the video too. I like that music.
When I first saw that video, I was just, wow. The Dalai Lama is a student of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, and I'm a student of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Along with Ajahn Chah is a student of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. I'm in good company. I've got a good classroom here.
Hey, we're just as lucky we got you. All right. You were the one who made the Dharma work for me. I didn't understand crap anything. You made it actually functional for me. I've been screwing around for like 5 years, not figuring out that I got to take out my unwholesome trash and just start replacing it with a good, wholesome, positive, yes, I can.
But that doesn't make me special. It just means that I was in the right classroom with the right students. And we have literally tens of thousands, maybe even just in Thailand alone, 25,000 nobles was the story that I heard in the 1980s. Okay. And we've got just tons and tons of nobles in the West. And the reason for that is because when the Asians came, as you saw me say one time, that it was the Vietnamese War that put the Americans in Vietnam, and then they go to Thailand and get R&R. In fact, I was talking about the missing in actions, the MIAs. I knew personally 4 or 5 of the dudes. They ran the bars that did the R&R. And the government knew that there was so many missing in actions, and they would do nothing about it because it was too politically hot. Because there were so many of missing in actions. They'd rather be presumed dead in the United States while they're running a bar in Thailand. Meanwhile, so many of the flyboys, they picked up a Thai girl or two and took them back to the United States. And all these Thai women around these military bases, they did what? They opened Watts. They brought their culture with them. I mean, hubby is not going to eat Thai food, so let's either open a Thai restaurant or better still, let's open a Wat so that all the goods can come and cook Thai food. But we need some monks to feed. So now they go back to Thailand and say, we're looking for some good monks. And all the young monks says, yeah, me, take me. And then he says, no, you want to come to America. We don't want monks who want to come to America. We don't want monks who want anything. Let's go get some of the old dudes. And the old dude says, I don't want to go to America. And the lay people are saying, oh, pretty please, and yank them with them. And off they go. And so the United States now is not just filled with Theravada from Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, but you also have now huge amounts of Tibetan and Zen. Well, not so much Zen because the Japanese, they know enough about America. They don't want to go to America. It's hard to yank a good Japanese Zendo dude. And so most of the Zen places are run by Westerners. But you need to go and find a really noble friend. We've got hundreds and hundreds of really good Dhamma dudes. Most all of them are in the robes in the United States. They're in the Watts. And I highly recommend you go find someone that you can rub shoulders with and get a whole lot of that information and knowledge and some shraddha on your shoulder so you can start to practice and become like those monks. That's the way. That you don't have to get it from Dhammarato, but I'm glad that I was actually able to speak the language that you can speak, because the Thai men, they've got their own language and they've got it. They just don't know how to teach it in English. So this is my job, is to start to spread the Dhamma. But all the people who really want the Dhamma are really going to get it by getting just the spark, getting the idea of how to practice the Dhamma, and then go to all of these Watts. Literally hundreds of them. 4 or 5 in Dallas and 4 or 5. No, there's like 15 in Chicago. Probably 30 in New York. There's a really, really big, powerful, important one in Washington, D.C. And then right outside of Washington, in D.C., is a big Lao monastery. So they're all over the place. California, I don't even know how people can walk around. There's so many Thai temples in California. And guess what? People walk around in California to avoid the places instead of stepping right in. So I highly recommend that you guys get the idea that you're going to get really good Dhamma by going and introducing yourself to the old abbot. One of the things that I would suggest is, if you've got a car, invite him that you'll become his chauffeur. You'll take him anywhere. Why? Because now you've got the abbot of the Wat right there in the car with you for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. So this is
I
the way
actually did that. I did that, and it was great. I had an abbot for like 4 hours, and she was a personal attendant to Thich Nhat Hanh, and I got to just bombard her with questions. It was wonderful.
So does anybody have any final things to say? I mean, Mickey, you're almost sideways with this. Ben, do you have anything? Ben, do you have anything to say?
No, you sort of covered the question that I asked whilst you were talking about belief. So no, I'm all good. Thanks, Dhammarato.
Right. I don't believe anything you say.
That's good.
Don't believe anything anybody says. Go check it out.
That's
Go
it. I
see
thought,
it
like,
for yourself.
whole thing about like anxiety about the future or nervousness, it's just like wrong. It's just believing, but believing in negative things without experience of what's actually
what
happened.
could go wrong?
Yeah. And it hasn't happened yet, so it's just pointless belief.
almost all of your problems never happen.
Yeah.
We make them up, and there they sit. We mull them over, and we get confused, and we get full of doubt, and we get full of worry, and it didn't happen. So that's how you handle the future, is stay in the present moment. How do you handle the Nietzsche? Watch it happen in the present moment. How do you deal with all of the questions? Don't ask. Just sit there and watch. You're okay already.
Just let people come and ask the questions, and then you can just be like, huh, that's relevant to me. And then I don't have the monk going after me, trying to calm me out.
It's hard to talk a monk into chasing you. A good monk. New monks, under 5 years, easy enough. But after 10 years, they get hard. After 20 years, they don't bother. After 40 years, they don't even listen. So, does anybody else have any last questions? Michael, how about you? You still in the bar? Have you taken your bar exam? Can you jump that high bar? Dhammadas, do you have anything to say? Got a thumbs up or so? Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's all we need. All right. So let's go ahead and finish this talk. I've really enjoyed this one. No doubt about it.
Thank you, Dhammarato. Thank you.
See you
Thanks,
guys
Dhammarato.
soon enough.
Thank you very much.